Hi students, hope you all are doing well. Welcome to another exciting session of healthcare entrepreneurship. Let's get started from where we left last session. Let's look further. So typically in order to invoke or implement the user experience kind of environment for your particular product or service, we need to invest some time and energy into design thinking process. So design thinking is a fairly widely known term. If you look up design thinking, you will see there are courses and like entire modules dedicated on design thinking. I'll give you a snapshot of that. So what design thinking typically does is it basically looks at the empathy. So we had been talking about the empathy maps, user personas. So it basically looks at what the user really thinks, feel, gets, or really what is the user choice like around this particular product or service. So that's the empathize phase which is taken into account. Then you finally define and then ideate. So ideate comes as the third part. So you don't have the idea quite yet. You empathize, understand the user personas, you define like what could be your particular area of in which your product or service lies, and then you ideate. You get the right idea which comes with the value propositions which you are going to test in the market through the customer discovery process. And once you are done with your customer discovery, then you move towards your prototype development, which out of which like design is one of the major parts, and you finally test this prototype, right? So this is very basic steps of design thinking process. How do we implement each of the steps, like, is something we would like to discuss in the upcoming slides. So some of the important components of UX based design requires this 6 or 7 components, right? The first one is it needs to be more of a universal design, inclusive design, and equity focused design, right? So universal design, all of this cannot be done together, right? So you have to kind of focus your product or service towards whether I'm trying to make a universal design. So it could be some form of a consumable, or let's say you have developed a stent for some kind of a surgery, like where for angioplasty, where somebody has a heart attack or clot in the arteries, coronary arteries. So this particular stent could be a universal design, right? Let's say bare metal stents, particular these kind of materials, TINI kind of material, titanium based alloys and whatnot. So these are some standard stents which are there in the market. These are universal designs, can be used by anybody, right? Inclusive design, so solves for one but extends to many, right? So inclusive design example is when you have a glucometer specifically for measurement of blood glucose and the possibility of high sugar content or diabetes, like for majorly population above 40-45, right? So this is what the particular product glucometer is kind of set forth for, right? It is basically built for people above 40-45 where they have a possibility of diabetes or high sugar. But this is inclusive in the sense like majority of the expecting mothers, they have a high chance of fluctuating glucose levels in their body, and many a times if their glucose is little bit towards the pre-diabetic, the doctors would typically advise that you use a glucometer to monitor your glucose levels multiple times a day. So this device, which was built for a particular age group, and most of the expecting mothers would not be in the age group of 40-45, right? They would be around between the 20s to 35ish or something around that, right? That's usually the range, or 25 to 35, you would think. So that's an extension of a normal thing which is kind of built around a particular age group, and it this product is so inclusive that this could include another set of population. There are folks around their 30s who are into a lot of sugary diets like these days and have high levels of obesity. Sometimes this is inclusive of those particular population as well, right? Then the third one is which is a little kind of tricky. So it's an equity focused design. So there is a very subtle and key difference between the equality and equity. So if we look at the figures here, so this is basically designing for groups that have been historically underrepresented or ignored when building products, right. So once you hear the term historically underrepresented, it seems like some section of the society. No, it's not like that. It's like there are certain products which are built around a certain set of mindsets, right, like which we have. So these are the particular folks who may be using this product, and turns out like things are very different from what we think, right. Like, so that's where there needs to be equity. So let's look at an example here. This three set of people, like the first one is an adult, full grown adult, maybe in his 40s or something, and then the second one is a teenager, maybe like 13 or 14 years old, and the third one is a little bigger than an infant, maybe a toddler, so around 6 or 7 years of age. So typically for watching a cricket match here, this is an example which has been put to understand it better. They have kind of made the those outer coverings or wherever the fences and other places through which you can watch, typically at the height of an adult, where an adult can clearly watch it, and maybe they could climb on a box to watch it even better, right. So they have not been typically made for infants. A toddler could also get up and maybe just watch it, right, but an infant cannot watch it. So this is something where an infant could have really enjoyed, but out of equality there is just boxes which can be placed, and boxes doesn't allow the infant to really watch it or the toddler to watch it, who may have really got a nice experience out of this. Equity is basically where you do not need a box for this adult, so he or she can watch the way they would watch, like given this height of this fence. The second is for the toddler, for the adolescent or the teenager, they would need one box, and for the toddler they would put two boxes, right. So this is sometimes a very equity focused design, right. So how can equity focused design translate to healthcare? So equity is where we are inclusive, and we are it's a little above the inclusive. Inclusive is where you are basically building it for some group of population, and it turns out that it is useful for few more. Equity focused is where we think about several different groups of population beforehand. This is one of the best ways of designing and giving the user experience, right. So one equity focus design possibility is when you design a particular app, right, you want to typically design it for adults who are professionals and who have a very clear idea of this particular app, how they can use it, and this is some specific health app, and you want to click in these 5-10 places, put your names in, and there are some keywords and other things which you will understand very easily given your generation, and then you're able to quickly pay out and go with it, right. And if you compare this with an toddler, or like a little above, toddler may not be using that app. So if you look at a teenager versus an elderly person, they may not be able to use this app, right, because of lack of communication. It's difficult to really understand what those interfaces are, and in several places they don't know how to use certain things. So one example, and this is just a very classic example, is maybe one of the payment apps like Paytm, right. So you would see this very often, that all of us find it or take it for granted that we are able to use it like in just maybe 15-20 seconds, just open it, scan it and pay for it, right, very quick. Give the same Paytm thing to a very elderly person who is in their late 60s or early 70s. They were not that close to technology back in the day, right. Like, so if you give it to them, and they will not be able to use this very easy app and very well known app that easily, and many of us may have faced it, right, like where your father or mother is calling you, how do I pay this particular person through Google Pay or Paytm, or how do I do it? And then you say, oh dad, you don't even know this, like let me show you like through a video call or something like that, right. And for a teenager, again, like that could be a difficult thing, right? Like he or she is not able to quickly run through the payment, or they're a little worried if they click the wrong option, they could get a scolding from their parents, right? Because they're not clicking the right payment place, right? But for an elderly person, they are aware of the payment options and other things. So equity, so that kind of a design is not specifically equity focused design. uh, Equity focused designs sometimes are things which can be used very easily by all of us, like the one example is digital thermometer. Digital thermometer, if it is done right with the simple thermometers, you just click it twice, you on it and you click it once and it takes the temperature, that's it, and it's by default set to Fahrenheit, right? That's the temperature scale which we all follow in India. So even a person of 13 years old can use it very easily. A person who is in their mid 40s can also use it very easily. Somebody in their 70s, it's also 2 clicks of button. Very equity focused design where everybody can use it, right? Glucometer, maybe not. Fairly the elderly population would be really worried about where I should pinch my finger, have I gotten enough blood to really look at the right readings, should I test it thrice or once is good enough. So there are so many anxiety issues like which comes along. So that's not a very equity focused design, right? It could be an inclusive design, but glucometer is not an equity focused design. Thermometer is an equity focused design. So hopefully this clarifies us, like based on whatever our product and services are, we could have either a universal design, inclusive design, or a equity focused design. So depending on your target customers, it's not always one is right, like, but typically I've seen equity focused designs would get a wider market, and to some extent inclusive designs as well. Universal designs, one size fits all, cannot work with very niche products. They have to usually come with something which is quick seller, like mask is a universal design, right? Everybody knows you have to tie the laces or tie the strings, and that's it. That's how a mask works. Face shield, very universal design, right? Shoe is a universal design, everybody knows how to wear a shoe, right? So these are kind of universal designs which are not very niche products. You come with any kind of niche product, like this is for diabetic something analysis, or this is for retina scan. These are very niche products, they cannot be universal designs, right? Not everybody can understand. So hopefully this first component is clear of design thinking, that we have to focus on either whether it is universal design, inclusive design, or equity focused design. Let's go next. Oops. Okay, the next one is user accessibility. So accessibility is the design of products, devices, services, or environments for people with disabilities. So typically most of our designs, if you look at from our product or app standpoint, we typically do not think about the bigger section of population which is disabled, right, or has disability of different levels. We always think of, oh, this is for generic customers, people are going to think this and that, this is their social media presence, or they would understand this and that way. But if you would have thought about like the different aspects of disability, things would be much more inclusive, right? So there are cases in mobile phones, and we have seen this before, not in the latest smartphones because it's a simple touch, but in the previous ones which had buttons, you would see certain embossing or braille kind of a thing, where somebody who is visually impaired can also, you know, touch and kind of feel which button they're pressing, and they can call the right number, right? So that's an example. Very similar with healthcare products. Can you have somebody like on a thermometer kind of a braille or some kind of a setting where it has a sound or says like you're not doing it right, please press a little bit towards your left or right to press it rightly. So if these kind of user accessibility aspects can be included, this could have some value, you know, like, so all the products may not cater to this particular segment, but it is nice to have this kind of inclusiveness. So some of the aspects which will cater to this are from the directions of touch. So how would you design for users who have use of one arm, either permanently, temporarily, or situationally, right? So there could be population who do not have one arm which is completely all right. It could have gone through some kind of amputation or paralysis or so many other aspects, right? So if somebody was a completely left hand person who is trying to focus on this particular app, and you have placed all this app details of your particular healthcare app towards the left side, so that this is right for the right-handed person, then this doesn't work for this person, right, who has this particular disability, right? So sometimes it's a good idea to have that option of having this left and right and possibility of touch, where the settings can change a little bit, maybe simplify for catering to disabilities, right? The second is C. How would you design for users who have limited vision, either permanently, temporarily, or situationally? So there could be vision losses which is situational, temporary, or permanent, right? So could you make device or designs like which are around this? So one example is this person's picture itself. So there was this smart cane. One of these technology was developed by the design department in IIT Delhi. I'm sure several of these other designs are there. So the smart cane, basically with this cane, a person who is completely visually impaired, while walking, he or she can kind of put the smart cane around their body and like just try to understand, and in few places just touch the front while they're walking in the front and try to understand. And this has a sensor, has a proximity sensor or a displacement sensor, which basically says that within a meter, if there is an obstacle or there is a pole or a tree or some kind of other things coming along, it will give a beep. That beep will basically make sure it alerts the that person that please do not walk in that way, right? So typically you would see a person who is visually impaired walking with a cane, trying to understand whether through the sounds or through the matter of touch, if there can be a simple sensor, right, which just tells like how much in the proximity is some kind of an obstacle, right? So then this person can walk very normally. This is one example. There could be so many other ways of like looking at the aspects of like persons who cannot see, right? So braille is one option specifically with that. The next one is hear. How would you design for users who have limited hearing, either of course permanently, temporarily, or situationally? So if you have hearing impairment, of course the visual aspects have to be very clear, right? If you have certain things with sounds, they have to all be catered in through words or through some kind of visual activity, right? The fourth part is speak. How would you design for users who cannot speak, right? Somebody who cannot speak is not able to communicate. How do you have certain aspects where like can you have certain sign languages and other things like which can basically tell them that this is how this particular device, product, or service offers or functions, right? Many a times it could be a part of your manual which takes care of this user accessibility standpoint, right? So let's go further. Third is designing cross platform, right? So cross platform is typically something which we would like to think while designing applications in the digital platform, right? So many a times we have designed this app for particularly Samsung mobile phones, or like let's say let's not be specific there, let's say Android users or iOS users, and we have not thought about tablet users or somebody who is using a computer of different possible screen sizes, right? Or somebody who is using a smartwatch. So this app, this health app which you had been working with, may not work at all like in the smartwatch, because this is not compatible to the interface or the size of the screen, right? So thinking and designing for the cross platform has become increasingly important when you are basically working in the digital space. So if you're trying to solve something digitally, like with the healthcare space, like where you're trying to offer some solutions to lead a healthy life or have like some kind of a smartwatch based tracker, or this could be for a certain device which has a sync with your particular app, and this particular mobile phones or tablets which you're trying to access this particular product through is not working. One classic example I had given of a smartwatch, where this particular smartwatch I had basically purchased from somewhere during in the Middle East while traveling in transit, and I was assuming that this is an Android platform and this would easily sync with any of my phones. Like I had a Samsung phone, this would sync in, but like it did not sync. It took me almost a day and a half to get it synced, right? And this used to send this OTP, which is going in some black box. We do not know which country this particular OTP is going, and the OTP would never be received. Like request for the OTP went, and that's why I was not able to connect for almost a day and a half. Then I looked up online and did something, and it did work. But that's basically not designing something for a cross platform. If somebody or a cross border, somebody goes from one place to another, he or she is not able to use that particular device, then it's a failure, right? So some of the aspects of designing cross platform, I've covered the first one, which is basically the size of the screen basically. The next is basically we are looking at the functionality. Do you have the options of only cash, or does it have digital checkout, several options of payouts and whatnot? Is it synced with Paytm or Google Pay? These kind of things have become more and more important. Sometimes people just don't carry cash. So I personally, I don't carry cash, right? Like, so if somebody asks me, okay, so I've now this nice product and service and I'm trying to basically sell this and get a cash out of it. Maybe they're trying to do something with the cash, but like that's a separate point. But I don't have the cash ready. I should have the option of doing a Paytm or some kind of a credit card based system. Maybe I don't have money in my account, so I want to use my credit card, right? So many of the folks like around us live with credits, right? Like they are living on their credit cards and they don't have money in their bank account. So how do you sell the product to them? That's why we need to have the cross platform, and this is one of the aspects, functionality. Next is interaction. We want to make sure that this is interactive and this is giving me enough information with rather than me having to read out every piece of it. So I have this particular app screen and I'm trying to understand what is this, what is that. Let me click it a little more and let me get to the next page and maybe I'll understand. That's not a very nice interface, right? The last one is content layout. How do you specifically lay out your content? And part of this I had spoken about the visual design aspect, where you have the product and the details of the product kind of contrasted or sized in the particular way or presented in a particular way where it is very clear what you're trying to focus on, right? Or give the right value to the customer. So here are some examples of the content layout. Same content placed in different ways. The first one just has the name of the brand and some pictures. The second one has just name of the idea of a discount, like 70% discount without the brand being clear. Then there is another option of clearance sale where the brand is not very clear but it says clearance sale. So what do you exactly conform to? So designing your brochures, designing your app platforms, or the outline of your product, this becomes increasingly important, right? So these are all components of the user experience. So some of the important aspects which comes along with it is consistency, continuity, complementary, context, right? So these terms are very important. So consistency is basically whatever you're trying to offer. Let's say you have this particular health app where these first two pages are very clear. From the third page onward, things are getting very cluttered and I have no idea what is what, right? Where do I have to click? Do I have to click A or B or come from C to A? It's not very clear. So that's lack of consistency. You had a nice product to start with and then it kind of went bad, like as we went forward. Very similar with your product packaging. Like for example, if you have this nice kind of this new digital thermometer which has this nice functionality, as somebody is unwrapping, the box looks really nice, the manual is very clear 3 set of instructions, but once somebody starts to use, the first screen is very nice, the second screen is very confusing. That's lacking consistency. This is where the user would take an option of possibly returning this product, which is very bad for an emerging startup like all of us, It may sound like a lot of fun to return stuff in Amazon and so many other platforms, like when we do it by ourselves, but when people return products or services, of course they cannot return, but they can ask for a refund if things are not nice. But somebody having to return your products in not the best of the condition and open thing, that is very difficult to be entertained and taken positively by a startup owner like any of us, right? We are all trying to be entrepreneurs. We don't want our products to be returned, and there could be so many reasons, right? Everything was just perfect, but the last mile, which is when the actual functionality came, like, it is very confusing and it's not very clear, and nobody has the time to read the manual in so much in detail. We may have done everything right, but we have not done the right user experience analysis, right? So the consistency in your product offering or your service offering is very, very important. There has to be a continuity. So there has to be a continuity in the sense, it should not be like in your app, we are in the third page and all of a sudden it shows, I have not even looked at your particular product or offering what you are doing, and you have this big payment page that pay now, and then you get to the next page. That is lack of continuity. Many a times you will see this, and this is very, very annoying for majority of the customers. You are visiting this nice website and you want to really read about this website before going for that possibility of buying that product, right? And here is this very annoying kind of page which pops up, and it says, please enter your details, your phone number, your name, this and that. This has happened to all of us, right? This is happening on a day-to-day basis, and we don't want to fill that detail. And what I'll end up doing is, sometimes I may fill those details, trying to think that this page will just vanish, but the next step is it asks for an phone number, OTP, and then asks you, please verify your email, give us few more information, or subscribe, and this gets so annoying, I would just close that page and never look at it, right? So that's a setting we would never want to be in with our particular app or particular product platform. Product, of course, you don't have payment of that option, but this is specifically for the digital option, where many a times we would think that probably let's put the payment page in the fourth or fifth page, or start getting the subscription before the customer can read it fully, right? Let us get them intrigued and then extract some money. That's not the right way to do it, right? It's not very sustainable. It can be a quick marketing trick for things which are viral or selling like a hotcake, but if you are going as a startup and you are trying to pitch your product, you want the customers to really get a nice experience before you get to the payment page or something where they're putting their life at stake, kind of. So whenever somebody takes their card or tries to pay, people think twice or thrice. This is something we all have to understand. For products which we are not very sure of or which are new in the market, we have to be very clear and honest about those products. The ideas have to be looking attractive. There has to be a nice continuity rather than a discontinuity or some kind of divergence, right? Third is complementarity. So several things are complementary in the sense that a product is there and the service is also very similar and in sync with that, right? So there are so many products, like for example, we have this wearable device which you can wear for this diabetic foot pressure measurement, and we have this nice app with it. So the first page is basically the picture of that particular particular insole, and the second page is where you can put some of the details so that we can track some history, and third page is basically the recording. So both things are kind of complementary. It's not a supplementary information which needs to be as an extra. So there are cases in which you may be able to operate the entire device by itself and not require the app at all. Then your app is basically a supplementary information. It is not something you would like to invest your money in because it's not useful. It has to be complementary, right? This particular device works with this app, so you're selling this together, and the app has to be quickly synced and quickly performing whatever the device cannot perform, that the app is taking care, and it's a wholesale package, right? So this kind of complementarity should be there. It should not lack context. So many of the times you will see products or services from their names itself to what the product is trying to pitch for completely lacks context. So out of like doing some quick marketing and trying to make a quick money, we would place ads and things into the apps and other digital platforms. Somebody is just trying to understand your particular service. Maybe you're offering some kind of a physiotherapy service and they're trying to just understand, and all of a sudden this ad starts popping up and you're distracted. It lacks context, and then there is something about you can buy this particular device that may not be directly related to physiotherapy. So maybe you're trying to pitch some product around physiotherapy, but the particular page or wherever somebody is looking has to have some context attached to it, right? There has to be a theme. It cannot just go out of context that there are so many offerings, please select what you want. You will see so many websites which are completely lacking context. They may be websites which are selling pretty well because there is a demand, but it may be lacking context in the sense it's just all sorts of products. There is healthcare devices, there are diagnostics, there are particular things from head to toe, there are stents, there are watches. So if stents and watches are in the same platform, what would you think about that company? You would think that maybe the quality is not good, maybe they are not very focused, or they are lacking context, right? So that context has to be there. The fourth point is design for the next billion users. So whenever you're designing, you want to design for the next billion users. So that should be the thing in your mind rather than trying to design for yourself or just for a few people. Reaching the next billion users poses several challenges to all the tech companies, be it to the silicon giants or startups in India are looking to solve, right? The biggest subset of the huge target audience is India, which over 600 million people who are slowly trickling into the digital world. So we have a digital transformation which is still ongoing, like many of us may be very well versed with how to work with apps and web platforms, but you just go a little outskirt of where you live, like you will see people are not very aware of. Give it to your household help, they would not be aware of. Give it to the elderly population, they will not be aware of. So we would think like we are living in a realm of digital India, but it's a digital transforming in India, right? So tech companies need to earn the trust and loyalty of these possible customers and not view the next billion users as a short-term harvesting of data producers, right? So many of us are looking at whatever this particular app or product is, this is generating a lot of data. This is something maybe I can sell to the data agencies and make a quick buck. No, that's not the idea. We have to make the digitally non-aware people very aware of what our offerings are, and try to educate them in a sense that they are able to use this from a nice user experience standpoint, right? So some of the key aspects of designing for the next billion users include cost. So if your product or service has to be cost effective, otherwise it cannot transform, because the purchasing power in a city versus a tier 1 or a tier 2 city versus like rural areas are very different. Connectivity, how quickly can you connect, like is there a internet connectivity in this particular area where a heavy app which you're offering can be accessed, or this particular product can be shipped by a particular channel partner. I'd given you an example of certain pharmaceutical drugs which only can be shipped like in 3 or 5 days. So by that time your throat-ache is gone. Like I needed this particular brand of lozenges for my throat-ache, and it took 3 to 5 days of shipping, and by that time I've taken all kinds of antibiotics and other medications and I'm better now. I don't care about this product anymore. So next time I'll not even care about buying this. Accessibility or connectivity, digital literacy. So we have to have everybody digitally literate. Like how do we do that? By making things simple and something which is intuitive, right? And the literacy in general, if somebody doesn't understand what this thing is even, or what this product or app can particularly do, there is no way we can push it forward, right? There has to be this generic literacy. So the fifth step for UX and UI design modality is doing the right design research. So how is this design research done? Typically there are three levels of research which are typically done as a part of the UX design. The first one is known as the foundation research, which typically comprises of the interviews, surveys. You'll have certain focus groups, competitive audits, field studies, and dairy studies. So these are typically done as a part of your customer discovery program, and where a lot of the research is already conducted parallelly for UX research. The second part is design research, that's the second layer, which basically comprises of A/B testing. This is based on hypothesis based testing, whether your product is looking better than the other products, similar products in the market, through simulated test marketing, direct market testing methods, and so forth, right? Then there are cafe or gorilla studies. These are some other testings. Most of these would be covered in the upcoming lectures. Um, then there is this cart sorting, intercepts, several other design techniques which can be studied in depth. The post-launch research, this is what comes into the place once you have kind of launched your product to certain capacity, right? Then you do another kind of A/B testing and usability studies, surveys, and log analysis. So this is not the absolute commercialization, but this is for after the initial soft launch. So that is typically when you do like a post-launch research, right? So if you just look at the figure on the left, you are looking at the product development cycle, starting all the way from the brainstorming to defining, designing, testing, and launching, right? So during this phase, the foundation research is typically during the brainstorming component, which is during your customer discovery and initial ideation step. Then you have the design research, which we are kind of forms a part of the design module while you're trying to design your product or service. That's when you conduct the design research, and post-launch research is typically around the launch phase, right? So all this stages of research for the right UX design lies around the product development cycle at different steps, right, and different steps and times. The sixth important component is to empathize with the user. So the best way to do that is to create great user experiences, is to basically empathize with the user in the right frame of mind. So how to do that? You ask a lot of questions, become more observant, try to get a positive feedback, or just a genuine feedback. Specifically, we are not always looking for positive feedback per se, like we are looking also for negative ones, but try to get a genuine feedback where somebody is interested to tell you more than what you have asked for, right? Be an active listener. We have talked about this at length during the customer discovery lecture. Request inputs, have an open mind, keep current on the UX research. So typically what you have to do is be up to date on the user experience research. What is the state of the art? What is currently being done, right? Has anything changed over time? So if you empathize with the possible customers or users and try to connect at that level, you will get a better insight into what your product should be from a user experience standpoint. They will tell you very clearly that what do they find really useful or accessible or very exciting to use and whatnot, right? Another technique to understand empathy is to build a really good user experience is to build empathy maps. So empathy maps typically breaks down the thought process of a individual, specifically a customer or an end user, into four different components. The first component here is says, so what the person actually says. Second is thinks. Third is feel, and actually does. That's the fourth. So says is so the person may say something like, I want, and this is all around your particular product or service idea, right? So they say something like, I want convenience, likes to use the phone. So this is somewhere where if you're planning some form of an app development would be handy. Enjoys picking up coffee. So this is just a random probably thought process, but it may fit into your particular problem statement which you're trying to solve. Then what does he think? He doesn't have time for long lines. So this typically tells about his mentality, that if you were to pitch for a healthcare product which is sold through a doctor who is a very busy doctor, this person may not be like a real buyer who would be interested in this product, right? uh, so he also says he needs caffeine to function. That basically means he's a very highly stressed individual. He has a lot going on in his life. So it does give you a perspective from any product which you're trying to pitch. The next is says and thinks is clear. How does he feel? He feels very impatient and overwhelmed. So this is a person you're looking into, or a persona you're looking into, where basically the person is very impatient. They do not have so much of patience or time to look into your product details or service details. They will make some hasty purchase decisions, and sometimes like out of just sheer joy or probably a great user experience in this form. So empathy maps sometimes becomes really handy to understand what kind of experience is this particular person or persona trying to establish or have, right? Another aspect is does. So this is all great. This is what the person says, thinks, or feels. What does he actually do? So he actually ends up drinking coffee every day. So that basically means that he repeats this coffee drinking habit on a day-to-day basis. So if you have any particular product or services which are around caffeine intake and health, maybe a health app which tries to cut down on the amount of caffeine intake, this is one of the persons you can possibly pitch to, and you have to look at how to pitch to him, right? Heavy smartphone user. So this is a person who is going to use the smartphone every 2 or 3 minutes and is going to scroll through or look at the apps and the notifications and whatnot. So this person can be catered to digitally, right? Walks to work. So basically this is a person who doesn't like too much of luxury, it seems like, or is very health conscious for that aspect. It could be either of the two, where he walks all the way to his work rather than taking a car or by taking the public transport. So this does say a few things about him, like which may help you design your user experience or the value propositions very clearly, right? So this is another important aspect which needs to be catered to. The eighth point for very coherent design thinking, what we are trying to learn, these are all aspects of design thinking, is to have interview sessions with the right stakeholders. If there is a particular person in a company whom you are trying to pitch your product to, so you're trying to pitch your product to a company, but there is a technical person who does all the approval business. So speak with such folks, just see what they have to say. They may completely trash your product, but that's something to learn from. What are they willing to really take? What are their grievances with the current products? So these are the aspects which we are trying to learn through the design thinking process in order to incorporate the right design elements. There is another design thinking way in which it's a much more structured way of design thinking, and there are several different structures which are available. Like I've said, design thinking is a course in itself and has different structures available. Like this is one of the ones like which are fairly popular. This is known as double diamond structure. So and here we are trying to look into an example or a case study of a health pal app. So pal is a friend kind of a thing. So health pal app, and we are looking at the design process through this double diamond structure. So this looks like this. The four verticals of the structure is discover, define, develop, and deliver, right? So under the discover, you have the surveys, user interviews, there's something known as affinity maps, competition analysis, usability evaluation, right? Heuristic is a different term here, but we could just say usability evaluation. Then you have under define, we are trying to define the problem statement, potential solutions, business requirements, user stories, user personas, user journeys, and user flows. These are all coming after the discover option, like where we're basically trying to define the details either through the value proposition or product specifications. All of these details we have learned so far, right? Third is the idea of development. So basically you have there is a cart sorting mechanism, content audit, IA sitemap, paper sketches, mid fidelity wireframes or wires, initial high fidelity components, usability test plan, usability recurring plan. So there are so many aspects which comes under the development, product development window, right? Not going through all the details of it, but there are a lot of different stages of designing, prototyping, and basically iterating on the same. That's the crux. And then the final step is to deliver, because at the end of the day we want to deliver our products, and that includes a style guide, a high fidelity prototype, and an end design presentation. We want to have like a final nice, very attractive design presentation which people can actually buy or give us money for, right? So these are the 4 steps in which design thinking can be conducted, and that factors in rightly. Let's take this example and look how this was done. So this is this UX UI case study where this particular mobile health and wellness app design concept was kind of looked into from the different stages of ideation, product development, and commercialization aspect. So the way this app reads, like it's a health-based care assistant. So the pitch is introducing HealthPal, a healthcare informed booking assistant for all your health and wellness needs, right? So this is also reading within the app platform. We emphasize on a holistic, patient focused approach to healthcare and only source the best doctors and health practitioners who are on the same mission. So it is definitely a connection kind of app which brings together doctors and patients. That's clear, and I'm sure there are other opportunities to collaborate and look at the possibilities there, where the patients can deal with the pharmacies and, like, certain medical device industries and so forth, right? The sources here from which this app details and the case study was picked up on the right. So let's get started. So the step 1 was discovery, or the discover stage, which basically included the surveys and the interviews. So this reads like this: to get the project started, I began my research by formulating questions to ask people who need the advice of an expert but don't have a friend or family member to call. So typically they've initiated the project by looking at people or folks like who need an expert advice on their medical condition or some kind of healthcare condition, but do not typically have a friend or family member to call or figure out that where they can find the right advice. So this person further says, like, this is the majorly the entrepreneur. His target age demographic is 18 to 14 years, since younger people are less likely to elicit expert help and older people may be more likely to be turned off by the technology and the virtual call aspect. So this person has thought through. So 18 to 40 sounded reasonable because he thinks younger people are usually, like, they just do not either care about their health that much, or they would think that I don't really need help because they're at the best of their age, right? And elderly people are usually turned off from by the technology, and whenever there is technical complexity, they want to keep things simple and like the traditional ways. We have all seen it, right? So this person further says, I kept an open mind and considered everything about my customer by listening to them and learning about the complexity of their needs. So all he was trying to understand was, given this background, that he's trying to possibly find a solution of having an expert opinion or expert doctor's help for these kind of folks 18 to 14 years old. He wanted to hear out to all of them for their grievances, and then look from a design thinking kind of perspective that how you can solve this particular set of problems or how he can add value, right? So he did a bunch of surveys where he did a professional advice survey where he basically says, have you recently received a professional advice online, by website, phone call, or through a mobile app? If so, I would really appreciate you filling out my survey for my user research project. So you see how typically this is pitched. This is pitched as a project or as a student. That way you have a much more higher likelihood of getting a response, right? If you say I'm doing this as a part of a company or a startup, most likely most of the people will not empathize or give you your time, right? So it also says it should take just hardly 5 to 10 minutes, and he thanks them. And so typically if this goes to somebody who knows him like from a distance or is like a friend of a friend, like, or something like that, would typically find some time, 5 or 10 minutes to help him out, right? But if you are just cold calling or sending this surface out to like a open like ocean basically, then the chances of getting a revert is very low. So he does have a few audiences in mind, and he's trying to target a certain location, United States in this particular case, and then he has kind of collected the response for 20 people, right? So some of the screening questions were put, and he got quite a good set of answers for the same, right? Another very specific question which he had, these were the initial ones were generic questions, where please select the type of professional you would like to seek advice from the most. So one of the top set of responses statistically was from the health and wellness. So he basically wanted to validate his idea whether this health and wellness kind of an advice is something which is welcoming, like from most of the end users or customers, right? So typically he had given a lot of option ranging from business, law, education, creative, home improvement, financial, health and wellness. So interestingly, nobody wanted any creative or financial help or advice. Law and home improvement and business wise, they wanted some advice, but health and wellness was really standing out, which kind of revalidates his hypothesis that this product or this idea is important somewhere, for at least the generic population. Second specific question was, when seeking a professional's advice in past, was the professional able to fulfill your needs? Please explain how they were and or were not able to help you, right? So typically 38%, 38.5% said they were satisfied with their experience, and but you have a fairly high number like 25.6% who were not very satisfied, right? So then there were some other options, and no responses from a few. So that kind of were the initial surveys which this person conducted, right? Then he looked at affinity maps. So typically with the results of a survey and interview research analysis, he synthesized the data collected through the creation of an affinity map. This is one of the common techniques like which are used for design thinking. This process is a great method to help me make sense of all my information when I have a lot of mixed data. So when you have a lot of data thrown out from different surveys and you have surveyed a lot of people, so you want to organize this data in a fashion which gives you the right kind of answers so that you can derive the value proposition, derive the design specific answers and things which you actually need to build your idea around the product, right? So after synthesizing the data, he used this data to build personas. Personas we had discussed in one of the earlier lectures, and we have repeated the term quite a bit. Persona is nothing but when you are looking at, let's say, 100 or 200 people, and you can somehow, based on the responses of a survey or interviews, categorize that these are the 4 common types of people or 3 common types of people I am going to encounter from a day-to-day basis as my possible customers, right? And then you make a user persona around it. So for example, just a very classic example, if you're trying to make a medical device for the middle class and the upper middle class, lower and the upper middle class, so you can make within the upper middle class maybe a subsection or 2 different kind of personas, people who are a little frugal in their behavior and some people who are extravagantly spending. So those 2 categories can be distinguished, and then you can make personas around their life, like based on the survey answers which they have provided. It's not like this person looks like this or this is gray hair, not like that. Like, so if your survey question was like how much are people willing to pay for this particular idea or product, let's say 500 rupees versus 3000 rupees, or what are the key features which they find important, like, so the key painkiller may be something like they are not having a very accurate device which is being offered, right? So if you see this, that one segment which is willing to pay high 3000 rupees demands a high accuracy, then this is a persona you're trying to build. This is a person who has a good amount of cash at his disposal, and he or she is really looking for a high accuracy of the device, and they are willing to pay within this range. There could be so many other added survey questions and values added to it, but that is how a persona typically looks like. These are categorization which kind of represents another 100, 200 or maybe thousands of people, right. So, sometimes when we call that particular academicians or teachers in an engineering setting would behave like this for this particular type of research problem, that means I am trying to create a persona around it. Or actors in a certain setting would probably give an experience like this. So, that is another persona, right. Or doctors in a particular setting in specifically let us say cardiology is going to treat a disease like some kind of coronary artery disease like this. So, typically that is a persona I am trying to set. So, these are categories, right. So, coming back to this, so based on the lot of data which was generated through the surveys, they try to develop a persona and list of insights supported by relevant examples and presented it in a logical and virtually or visually engaging way, right. So, this is a little too cluttered and too small to read, but we are just going to read through the highlights a little bit, right. So, we are looking at some of the participants survey results. Let us talk about the big numbers here. Research goals for HealthPal, patterns, participant goals, frustrations, quotes, searching for experts, expert appointments, consultation, rewards. So, what this person has typically done is based on all these survey answers, he has kind of categorized those survey answers under the subheadings and build the personas around it and kind of segregated all this details underneath these segments like expert appointments or consultations. What are the key grievances? What are the common practices? Who are the competitors? So, these kind of answers are kind of generated through this exercise, and finally they can look into the design thinking aspect of their product. So, we are going to wrap it up today here. We will pick it up exactly from here in the next session. So, I will see you all. Thank you.